Okay, we can begin. So welcome everybody. Great to see so many familiar faces showing up on the list here. My name is Robin Kerber. I am the Associate Director of Programs at Full Plate's Full Potential, and really excited about our webinar series that we launched this year. This is webinar number 2, Who Tells Your Story? Using Social Media to Control Your Own Narrative. And I think that our intent for the hour that we have together is to really engage in conversation about using social media, other ways of highlighting your school nutrition programs, and have it feel more like a discussion and less like us talking to you. Because I know so many people, not only our panelists, but the attendees with us today, have great experience using social media, and we all can learn so much from each other. Next slide, Daniel. So today we have 3 awesome rock star school nutrition professionals from the state of Maine. We have Kate from York, who's the farm to school culinary specialist. We have Wendy from Kittery, who's the nutrition director. And we have Katie from RSU 21, who's the nutrition director. And so they're going to share some of their own expertise and experience using social media throughout the presentation. And then we also have Daniel, who is my amazing coworker. I'll let him introduce himself, but he's going to take it from here.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. And thank you to our panelists, Kate, Wendy, and Katie for joining me here today. My hope is that at the end of this whole thing, you guys end up hearing a lot more from them than you do from me, because I think they have a lot of really relevant insights as to what it takes to use something like social media to spread the word about your programs from the inside. So again, a big thank you to the 3 of you for joining me today. One of the reasons that Full Plates is kind of even considered holding a webinar like this in the first place is because of feedback we received from people like you. My colleague Finn, I believe just before the summer this year, conducted our first annual child nutrition survey. And during that survey, one of the things we heard pretty consistently from the field was this desire to raise awareness about some of the really great things that are happening at school nutrition programs across Maine, which is great. But then the question becomes, so how do we do this, right? And the truth is, there are really a lot of different ways, right, that you can work to tell these stories, to spread awareness in your communities and beyond. But today we wanted to focus primarily on using social media as that vehicle, in part because, hey, social media is free. So at least in terms of dollars and cents investment, that barrier to entry is pretty low. But there are some other reasons as well. And so just to kind of kick us off, right, to understand, hey, why do we use social media? I'd like to hand it off to some of our panelists and kind of get their take on it. Wendy, if you don't mind, can I start with you? Why have you decided to use social media when promoting your program?
I think here in Kittery, we started social media to show the parents that, the old saying, it's not your old school lunch, to show them exactly what their children are receiving daily and the great things that they're doing in the kitchens here now.
Yeah, and I think that's a big one, right? Like I think it's funny, just speaking personally. I have a 5-year-old who just started kindergarten, so he's entering the school system for the first time. And what you said couldn't be more true, and it's, I'm sure, very obvious to everyone here on the call. But what school meals are today versus what they were when people like me were in school, it's night and day. And I think changing perception through social media is well, this is a really powerful way to change that perception. Um, Katie, can I ask you the same question? Why use social media?
I like using Instagram because it's a lot simpler for me to share a message than having to put together like a newsletter or something like that, or having to go through our principals to share through their newsletters. I can just take a picture and make a brief little post and share it to the public. So it's simple, and I can share whatever message I'm feeling like, and it doesn't feel like I have this project looming over me. There's no due date. There's no date it has to get sent out or anything like that.
Yeah, and I mean, time I think is something that I would definitely like to return to and explore more with all three of you at some point. But yeah, I mean, nothing can convey quicker and I think stronger just a great photo on social media to showcase some of the things that are happening inside these kitchens, which again makes these platforms pretty powerful. Kate, same question. Why social media?
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity for us to show firsthand what we're doing, especially, versus hearing it from others, so it's a way for us to sort of set the record straight, in the case that it needs to be. And also the average age of parents these days are using social media to communicate mostly. So it just seems the most sensible way to get whatever we want to share out there.
Absolutely. So this is going to be what I'm about to show now. This will be, I think, a reinforcement of what you just heard from some of our panelists, and maybe a couple of other kind of additions as well. So again, with social media, this allows you to reach a pretty broad audience, right? To connect directly with not just students, but parents and really the entire community. To really, I think, Wendy, you said it, right? To, in some ways, combat misinformation, or maybe another way to put it is to change these old stereotypes and help people realize there are a lot of things that have changed about these programs since they were last in school. And so this is a great way to change those hearts and minds and share those positive stories. Social media is also a really great way to highlight success and achievements, whether that's something new that you and your staff are trying when it comes to menu items, or even celebrating the staff itself. It's a great way to build positive morale inside of your kitchen, because you get a chance to highlight somebody who is hopefully comfortable getting highlighted in a public sphere. But it's also a great way to kind of show these faces again to that outward community. You can increase awareness, influence perception. All of these things are some of the reasons, I think, as to why using social media is something worth exploring. Similar, but a little bit different. I wanted to now kind of drill down onto the benefits of engaging on social media. So again, I'd like to kind of throw to our panelists. Let's start, Kate. This time around. What have you found to be some of the benefits of using social media?
Well, it's definitely a way for us to share our ideas and also get ideas from other schools. I think that's a big one for us. It's also free PR for our nutrition program. So it's hard to argue.
100%. Yeah, again, that $0 entry fee is really friendly, right? Wendy, how about you?
Basically the same as Kate said, showing the families, the different things that we do, like when we're doing, like Taste a Day at a school or the garden towers, to show them the different things that we do in our program.
And Katie, same question.
As a new director last year, it was really helpful to connect with other directors through my social media, people that are also using Instagram. It was a quicker way for them to get to know me than just meeting at the state meetings like twice a year. I got brought in on grants with other people and kind of got brought in the loop a little bit more because they were able to see what I was doing.
I mean, that feels huge, right? Especially for, again, a newer person in this role, building that sense of community and feeling like you're not alone.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, did you have a specific example of like being able to connect with folks that you'd be willing to share? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
it's just such a powerful comment.
Well, I just know the folks who are big into their social media, like Whitney and York, Jeannie Riley, Caroline from Old Orchard, they all consistently like all of my posts, which is great. It makes me feel kind of like in the loop and like there are people paying attention, even if my district isn't necessarily looking that day. And then we, a bunch of us in York County, wrote a grant together last year And I don't think I would have been involved in that discussion had they not been able to get to know me a little bit that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really fantastic. And we'll get, I think, more to this later in the presentation too, but this idea of working with other school nutrition directors and collaborating when with your posts, not only do you build a sense of community, but just from a analytics metrics, how social media works perspective, right? It allows you, when you collaborate with others, to reach a larger audience and to engage more of the community. So there's a benefit on that side as well. Again, Katie, you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? Stronger relationships is absolutely one of the benefits. Cost effective, $0 to get started. This is also a way to perhaps boost participation in the program, to really showcase some of the delicious meals that are being served in the kitchens and to encourage more students to eat those school lunches. There's this byproduct too of inspiring parents and local leaders to become community advocates for your program, to really show them here's the value we're bringing to our kids each and every day. And then the last one I'll highlight, and this is a little bit of a double-edged sword, which I'll again come back to, but immediate feedback, right? You do get to hear, or you have the opportunity to hear directly from parents and students about what is working and what isn't. And we'll come back to that idea in a minute. Challenges, right? So far, we're only a few slides in, right? But this has been a really rosy picture. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say, hey, there weren't some challenges to consider with social media. So again, I want to hear from our panelists first. Katie, this time, if you don't mind, if I can start with you.
I think it's hard to get traction on your account and kind of build followers. At first, I wasn't using hashtags, which I should have been, and I try to now. But still coming up with what are people looking up? I'm not sure. And it can be hard to get it out into the community. Like our district has an Instagram account, so that can be helpful. Sometimes if they repost me, then I'll get a slew of new followers. But it can be hard to get the message out to people that it exists.
Kate, same question.
Yeah, negative responses, dealing with those, that's one of the challenges. But we try to keep our posts factual and hope that works. But I know that's another slide. Another thing I'm thinking, getting into a routine of posting enough so that, you keep participation up. The less you post, the less like it messes with your algorithm. So you're not seen as much, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't mind, I mean, we've kind of hinted at it a couple of times. Now might be appropriate to talk a little bit about, we'll say, negative comments that are unfortunately part of a social media landscape every now and again. Do you have a method, Kate, for dealing with those types of comments?
Well, just so we're clear, our director Whitney does most of the posts. I'm a big contributor there, but she's away this week, so I quizzed her on all these questions beforehand, but. We were on the same page with a lot of the responses. She tries to keep everything very factual. And she did say a lot of times other parents will answer for, other questions within the feed too, or within the post. So it's actually quite helpful. But her big thing was she tries to keep the post as factual as possible. So there's not too many open doors for people to come and be objective.
Which makes sense. Although I will say that's really fantastic, actually, that you have parents stepping in and kind of acting as those community advocates from time to time. Wendy, I want to ask you the full question, but really before I do, Wendy and Katie, do you have any other thoughts about negative comments and how you guys tend to handle those things?
I think it depends what the negative comment is. Sometimes I will just take it down. And other times I might go and message that person behind the scenes just to give them some feedback on what their comment might have been.
Yeah.
I
think
fielded many yet, which has been really nice. I don't find that it happens often, and I also make sure that my my posts are really just like pictures of what we actually did that day. I know it can get, like Kate said, it can get a little hairy if you're getting into like opinions on nutrition or something like that. That puts you at a little more risk there.
Yeah, for sure. And I, you know, I'll share my opinion too, right? And I want to be clear with this, right? This is just my opinion, right? I think there are a million different ways anyone can go about and handle these things. That's true for all of social media, right? There's not one source of truth. There's not one single book that people refer to when doing this stuff. So what you hear here is, you know, my perspective and the perspective of our panelists. But I'll say when it comes to negative comments like this, my perspective is that very rarely in social media are you going to be able to engage in a productive back and forth with a negative commenter and change their mind in that public forum. You know, instead it's just going to be well, it'll feel counterproductive, I think. And so me personally, I do not tend to engage with those kind of negative comments. I think I fall more on the side of Wendy's approach, where I will take those down, and perhaps I will message that person individually to invite a less public conversation where maybe I have a better chance of changing some opinions. But having it in a public forum, at least in my experience, rarely leads to a positive outcome. So yeah, my recommendation would be steer clear. You know, again, just some other challenges to note here. Can be time. You know, and it's funny because Katie, I know you mentioned this earlier, right? Like as compared to a newsletter, right? Social media certainly is a lot less time to put something up and get it out there, but it's not zero time, right? And obviously, you know, you guys in many kitchens, it's you guys are pretty full, right? You have a pretty full day going on. So pretending that this is a zero effort game would be kind of obscuring things, right? Like there is some time that is required for this. Managing negative feedback, we've kind of touched upon that. Staying professional, right? Kind of not getting dragged down into that, again, negative feedback loop world. And then I think too, you know, so learning curve, right? If you're not familiar with these platforms, just kind of learning the ins and outs. Katie, again, I think you mentioned like just learning, hey, using hashtags when posting really can help my visibility. And maybe you don't know that when you're just getting started. And then the last thing I want to call out, something that I think you guys are probably all pretty familiar with, but still important for your world, are privacy concerns, right? If, you know, I'm sure a lot of your districts have some pretty well spelled out policies when it comes to social media use, and specifically posting images of kids and their faces to social media. So making sure that you understand those guidelines, that you're following those guidelines, and not kind of getting yourself into hot water, right? Like very important stuff for anyone to consider in this space. You know, another challenge too can even just be, again, depending on your familiarity with these sites, setting up your account, depending on, again, whether you've done this personally or not. So a little bit of good news on that front. Let's Go 5210 actually created this really helpful resource for getting started, and kind of will walk you through how to set up these social media accounts. And it even will kind of give you tips too on messaging and how to get started with posts like this. We have this is something that exists if you go to mainehealth.org, kind of this link down here, you can access that resource. We also have this in our resource library on the Full Plates website, which you can access and download. And I think Robin will also post a link to this resource in the chat here. It's super helpful. Let's Go did a really great job with this document. So again, especially if you're just getting started, I really encourage you to download this and take a look, because it's super helpful. You know, again, a few things it outlines: seeking approval from the district admins if required, how to create an account name, choosing a hashtag to use with every single post. You know, sometimes you can, for example, for Full Plates, every social media post we publish will have hashtag full plates on it. And then I'll usually change, I'll have a couple others in there and it'll change depending on the subject of the post, but hashtag full plates is always a part of our posts. I'm sure our panelists also have some regular ones that they use when they post. And then, yeah, partnering with the school when possible to share the content on their existing social media accounts is a really good way to, especially if you're just getting started, right? Let people know, hey, I'm out here, I exist, and to start getting those followers so they can see some of the things that are happening in your world. Messaging. So that's another big question, right? Cool, you've got the desire to do this, you've got the account set up, but what are you going to say when you're on there? Messaging is, to me, it's actually a little bit more of a fundamental question, more so than what are you going to say. To me, it feels more like, who am I, or how do I want people to see me, right? And so I think I would encourage anyone who is getting into social media, the realm, especially representing their nutrition program or any organization, is to understand your identity. Who do you want to be? And kind of keep that in mind whenever you're putting something together. That includes things like setting a tone. Do you want to be fun and playful? Just the facts, celebratory, informative? You can bounce back and forth for sure between a few of these things, but kind of understand who you are and who you want the world to kind of see you as when you are posting these things. I'll also say, again, just from my perspective, positivity creates more positivity, right? So I think the more positive you can be in your posts, you're going to see a lot more of that coming back to you, whereas negativity does tend to generate more of the same type of negativity. So be mindful of that when you're entering these spaces. We've talked enough about negative comments, but yeah, beware of getting stuck in those back and forth debates that lead nowhere. Social media is also a place where going on and on, kind of like I'm doing right now, is probably not the best way forward, right? Clarity and brevity. Think of these things like movie teasers, right? As opposed to full-length movies. People are scrolling, they scroll on. So as much as you can, keep your posts short and brief. And lastly, activity. It really does help to keep an active account. And kind of what that means really is I think dependent on you, right? And what you believe your schedules can accommodate. I don't think I would ever sit here and say, hey, to get into social media for your programs, you got to be posting 2 or 3 times a day, otherwise it's not worth it. That's especially for I think a lot of people just unrealistic. And I think the value of posting anything far outweighs not getting into it at all. So even if it's just once or twice a week, I think there is absolute value in that. But I think understanding the type of cadence you want to keep up with social media and doing your best to kind of stay accountable to that helps. Whether you decide I'm going to do twice a week, once every other week. Again, the more activity you have, the more of the platforms will usually promote your posts, but anything helps too. I think let's tell these stories and get them out there. Kind of on that front, actually, I wanted to toss back to our panelists to get a sense of kind of their approach to activity and how often they find themselves on the platform. Wendy, can I start with you, please?
So I've kind of put it in the hands of the kitchen staff. What they send me is what I post. At one of our recent Maine Health 5210 meetings, they gave us black trays to use as a background for their meals. So those really pop, putting the meals on those trays. So some of the kitchens are using those. Some will just shoot a couple pictures of whatever they're making that day, especially the alternates at our high school, because those change every day, just to show parents that it's not just what's on the menu. I guess I do it as often as they send it to me, or if I'm out because there's some special activity going on in a school, we'll post about that. And then my grandson just showed me CapCut or something like that. So we were playing with videos last week and putting those together because that was fun.
Wendy, I saw a program, I think last week, that used CapCut to use a clip from Monsters Inc. Was that
Yes,
you guys? That was wonderful.
that was fun. But again, it was
Yeah.
my 11-year-old grandson showing me those kind of things. So
Yeah, I mean it's funny. Talking to someone from that generation, I think is illuminating when it comes to social media. I've learned a couple of tricks even from my 5-year-old, which maybe I shouldn't admit, but yeah, they are savvy from a young age.
yeah.
Kate, how about you? How active would you say your account is? And do you have a sense of Wendy touched on a little bit, but the types of messaging or content that you guys try and put out there?
Yeah, I think, well, like I said, it's usually Whitney tries to do twice a week. And one thing I recently learned is that you can schedule your posts too, which I think is like huge, especially because everybody's got, I don't know if you guys can see my background, but life going on, right? Everybody has kids or whatever chaos going on. So that was kind of an awesome tip that I heard. And yeah, I think we try to just do factual stuff again. It's like recipes, tastings, if we promote local ingredients, just stuff that's made in-house, all sorts of stuff, just again, so that the parents can see what's actually being served at school. It's just anything and everything that's relatable.
Katie, how about you?
I shoot for once a week. I don't always hit that goal. And then I try to fill in with posting to my story. If it's like a photo that I don't think is great to have on my main feed all the time, I'll probably add it to my story, and it's a little bit easier to find content for that. Oh, you're muted.
I am. Thank you. Katie, I know you said you primarily use Instagram for your posts. For people who may not be familiar with the platform, are you able to kind of describe the difference between maybe a normal post and a story?
Oh yeah, so your normal post is permanently on your account when someone goes to view your account, and a story is I think it's 24 hours on your account
Yes.
when they hit your icon.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. What Instagram will do specifically with stories too is if you were to look at the platform, especially on your cell phone, kind of along the top, you'll see a series of bubbles with the different organizations that usually that you're following. And for anyone who has a story, when you click on those bubbles, you'll be able to see what that particular story is. So when it comes to using that type of post in Instagram, it's a good way to kind of cut the line a little bit as opposed to regular posts, and all of a sudden you're really visible and upfront because the platform really promotes stories pretty heavily. So I know again from Full Plate's perspective, whenever we post something just as a standard post to a platform like Instagram, I will almost always double it up and post that same thing to stories just to increase the likelihood that I'll get more eyeballs on that particular bit of content. So stories are a really cool little tool in Instagram, and it's really as simple as once you post something, clicking a couple of buttons, and that post gets pushed to that part of the platform. Thank you, Katie, for kind of diving into that. Collaboration. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but collaboration is key in well, not just social media, right? But I think obviously the work overall that you guys are doing, but it continues here, right? Because I think the more you collaborate with others, the further your messages can go, and that kind of gets to the heart of the matter, right? Like why we are holding this webinar to begin with, which is how do we raise awareness of these programs? And I think collaboration is a really key part of that. So on platforms, again, like Instagram and Facebook, collaboration can look like kind of like what we have here, using an @ symbol and then typing out the account name of the person that you would like to collaborate with. So we've got a couple examples here: Full Plates, York School Nutrition, SNA Maine is another really great one to tag to help spread the word. So that's how you let specific accounts know that you've posted something that you want to help spread the word about, and you can ask them when you do so to, hey, if you can, please help us share this out to the community. The other piece of this, right, would be hashtags, which I know Katie you mentioned earlier, and we talked about a little bit, right? But this idea of what is your standard hashtag? Again, for us, it's hashtag full plates. But then are there other ones that you want to pair with it, whether it's hashtag school nutrition, Maine leads, school lunch hero, which is a great one for school lunch hero week. The hashtags will likely change from post to post, but it's a good way, again, to increase your visibility on a particular post, as well as to be able to search for posts in that type of topic. So if somebody is out there searching for something related to school lunch and they type that into the platforms, now your post will be one of the things that hopefully will get served up and people will be able to see. I'm curious, again, from our panelist perspective, I'll just open question to all three of you. Are there hashtags out there that you guys tend to use repeatedly, or ones that you have kind of landed on over your time using the platform?
I think that's where I struggle, is knowing what hashtags, and who to tag.
Yeah, I just tagged like school lunch and SNA Maine, and it's pretty basic.
I don't know that Whitney has one that she goes to, but I was just thinking, and you would probably know more than I would about this, but isn't there like a program? It's not a program, but something where you can punch in the main, words that you're using, and it pushes out a ton of hashtags that are related. Have you ever seen that?
There are, absolutely. And actually, I mean, this could be a whole other webinar. But programs like Chat GPT, right,
Right.
are examples, right, of something where you can go in, you can share with that platform what you plan on posting and ask directly, hey, recommend some hashtags for me. So again, that's a whole other thing that I won't get into a ton, but you're absolutely right. Those exist. SNA Maine is a great one to include whenever you're out there. I'll put in a little plug for Full Plates. Always, please, always send us your stuff. We are more than happy to reshare and help spread the word through our accounts. And then, I think other ones too, like if you are, it depends on the topic, right? But let's say you're doing some scratch cooking, or you've got some local ingredients. There's a farm to school Instagram account out there that I suspect would be pretty happy to see some of these posts and to share as well. Bunch of different things that we could recommend. And after the webinar has ended, if folks want to dive deeper and kind of brainstorm and explore different things to include on this, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to explore that more with you guys. But yeah, kind of including others in with the ad signs, hashtags, all of that helps to boost that visibility and, again, spread the word, raise awareness. Right. Yes. And again, please, on that note, send stuff to me if you are comfortable. Full Plates is always happy to share that stuff out. And that's true if you have or have decided to start a social media account. In that case, you can just @Full Plates Full Potential and it'll reach me that way. Or, hey, maybe you're not really sold on using social media. Fair enough. But you still want to spread the word about your accounts. Email works just fine for me too. Feel free to email me photos, little captions, whatever you'd like. And I'm more than happy to find ways to promote that either on Full Plate social media or maybe other channels, depending on what we're looking at there. But always happy to help spread the word. Right. Just a couple more things to touch when it comes to social media posts. Figured it'd be helpful to give some ideas about the types of posts that could be used. Again, this is actually, these are suggestions found on that Let's Go 5210 document I mentioned earlier. But these are great, showcasing new food offerings, new menu items, even just awareness campaigns, whether it's, hey, did you know, 60% or whatever the percentage is of kids in your district participate in school lunch and rely on these meals for school and breakfast. I think it's also a really great way, again, to highlight staff members and to build team morale and get folks out in the public space so people can start putting faces to the people who are making these meals for their kids. I think is really powerful. So again, I really encourage folks to check out that document from Let's Go. It's super helpful. All right, and so what I'd like to do now, if it's all right, is kind of turn again back over to our panelists. We pulled a couple of examples of some recent posts, and I was hoping just kind of open-ended, if you guys wouldn't mind discussing kind of the hows and the whys of what went into these posts. Why did you decide to post something like this, and just generally your experience? So Kate, again, I know you're stepping in for your director, but can you share any insight as to kind of how York kind of approaches these things?
I sure can. So you'll see, so on the left, we did a tasting with some local apple cider. And the one with the school meals deserve a gold medal was more of like an informative post that was, I think she put it out around the time of the Olympics going on. Apologies for my 3-year-old in the background here. But that kind of covers those. And I know in the next slide,
One of those cute things that has a rabbit and
yes, you may. And then you guys will see that, so I'm the farm to school one, so I picked some of these posts, so sorry if I was being selective here, but the Pineland Farms, we had a week where we promoted all of our local foods and we showcased where they came from. So Pineland Farms and Native Maine and where we got some of that. And then again, another more of like a spotlight with our, you guys can see this, but the tray with our meal, and we had done like a vegetarian day. And we had some kale that we had grown in our greenhouse, so we used it on a pizza. So that was kind of, again, just kind of factual, fun, bright, posts that hopefully people are attracted to and keep them coming back.
But really eye-catching too, right? Which I think, again, in a medium like this it's what stops people from just scrolling past, right? And then I think, like, I look at that pizza, you scroll and you see that, you stop and you're like, oh, that's at my school cafeteria. And now all of a sudden, like, this is how you start to change old ways of thinking, right? Which is pretty cool.
Here's hoping.
Let's move on to Kittery. Wendy, same kind of question to you.
So we try to post our menu, obviously, when it comes out monthly. Kittery does use Facebook and Instagram. So let's see, whenever we do anything with a farm, so we have a collaboration with a farm right across the street here from Shapley School. So they grow a lot of fun things for us with the students here from Shapley. I think it's mainly 5th and 6th grade. So the peppers were from Nuni Farm across the street. So we always try to showcase anything we're doing with the farm, anything the students are involved with. And the picture on the left is the rainbow radishes from Nuni Farm, but it is it's pickled and showcased on top of one of our high school alternates. And like I said, they are constantly sending me pictures from the high school and the alternates they're serving daily. And like Katie was saying, I throw those up on Instagram. So hopefully if the kids are like on their phone during the day, they're like, oh, that's what's going to be in the cafeteria today, and bring them down. And then on the right is the black trays that we received from 5210. And it really, like you can see there, it really makes the food colors pop on with that black background. And that is from our elementary school.
Yeah, those trays are great for something like this. That's really cool. And again, like, great way to increase participation too in the school meals, if you can kind of show the kids ahead of time. Wendy, do you have a sense of kind of what types of posts seem to work better for you versus ones that don't?
I noticed like our elementary school parents are way more involved at liking posts. And then if we do a reel, you can see which ones are being viewed. So the reels at the elementary school are getting way more hits than at the high school. So um, yeah, it's the only thing I know for sure is when you can see what they're liking or watching.
Absolutely. And again, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Wendy, but for folks who may not be familiar with Instagram as a platform, we've now used kind of the word post, we've used stories, and you kind of just introduced the word reel. Are you able to kind of explain to people maybe unfamiliar with that term, what that means?
So a post is when you're putting your picture up there or any verbiage that you're writing with it, and it's what's coming up as you're scrolling through. A reel is like the fun thing that we were doing the other day with CapCut. And it's almost like a movie, whether it's still slides or video. In the reels, you can see each time somebody watches it, it'll say 26 views, 27 views. What was the other question? Sorry.
Oh no, you nailed it. Thank you. Yeah, exactly right. Reels, where posts tend to be more static. We're talking photos, right? Sometimes you can have a series of photos, which is technically a carousel, but those are posts. Reels are usually video, so there's usually some sort of movement in there, whether it's just straight up video or slideshow, but some type of movement. And kind of your mileage may vary, right? Some people find, and I think this is true for most, that reels tend to get the most eyeballs because there's motion, there's movement, and that just kind of draws our attention as human beings a little bit more than static posts. But not necessarily, and that's something that kind of the more you get into the world of social media, you can kind of keep an eye on how many people are liking these posts, how many people are interacting with it, and start to understand, okay, what does my audience respond to? It's funny actually in the case of full plates. The carousel, the multiple posts tend to actually really outperform for us versus reels, but that's not a universal truth. It really is dependent on your audience. And so that's something that as you get into this, you just kind of, you will see people interacting with these things and you'll be able to figure out what tends to get the most traction. The other thing too is to keep in mind, posts, because they're usually just static photo, they typically take a little bit less time to produce than something like a video, which may be a longer time commitment to produce and then publish. So there's a little bit of weighing the costs and benefits. Robin, please.
Yeah, I know that we might have time at the end for questions and answers, but I did want to just raise a couple questions that some of our attendees asked. So the first one is, are hits/likes on posts from students? So do you have a sense of how many students are being reached with your accounts? Like how many student followers you have, and how much is social media increasing guests choosing school lunch? So not sure if you have any kind of like data or anecdotal feedback on that question.
I know in Kittery, we see some students following us. And again, it's if they're liking something that we can tell if we know the students' names or whatever. I would say the majority are parents,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't have any data.
Yeah, it can be a little tricky, right? To distinguish sometimes unless the individual is known to you.
Right.
I think really what we've focused on a lot today are platforms like Facebook and Instagram, which I think both of them tend to skew a little older in terms of the audience. Certainly that's true for Facebook. Instagram is a little bit more robust in terms of who's using it. There are other platforms out there like TikTok, for example, that definitely skew younger. Too young for someone like me. I'm a little afraid of TikTok and personally have not ventured into it, which is why I'm not qualified to speak to it today. But again, there are plenty of resources out there to learn more about these platforms. So if you are feeling braver than I about something like that, you know, there are plenty of things out there that can help educate you before you make that leap into a platform like that. And heck, if this is something that again you really are interested in doing, hey, maybe this is a good time for me to learn as well. So don't hesitate to reach out, and perhaps the two of us together, or however many people are interested, we can pick that apart and understand the best way forward. Again, all about community building, right?
Awesome.
Also, Robin, were there any other questions?
Yeah, there was just one other one, kind of along the same lines here about student engagement. Are students, youth food council members, or cooking clubs helping create the post? So had any of our panelists, or feel free attendees if you want to jump into the chat, had students help create content for your social media or input?
Not so far in Kittery.
Not here either.
Yeah.
That would be great though.
We do have a Instagram page that the high school students have put together that they showcase their lunches. Has nothing to do with us, and I do not comment on that page. But it's good to, we have our food critics every day, so.
It is, I mean, it is great, right? When you're able to work again with some of the students in the in your cafeterias, although obviously there are challenges, right? But if you've got again, you know, we talked about it earlier, kids of this generation are so savvy when it comes to these things. And they have a way of speaking to their peers in a way that really feels authentic. That tends to increase engagement with these types of things. And so if there's ever an opportunity for anyone on this call to partner with students, you know, Full Plates has been fortunate enough to work with our Maine Youth Food Council, and we've just started dipping our toe into working with them on social media. But man, there's a lot to learn from that generation there. So highly, from my perspective anyway, highly encourage it. Were there any other questions? Or I'm sorry, Katie, go ahead.
You know, it just occurred to me that we did a like build your own avocado toast one day, and we threw a hashtag on there in case any students wanted to post their pictures. And that was sort of our way of trying to get them to engage. So it was pretty fun.
That's awesome.
I had a few students, probably, it's been a while now, that would post the menu every day. So they would find a picture from previous posts for the meal the next day. And they would use that as our community service hours. But the problem with that is parents expect, if you're doing that daily, parents expect to see it daily. And it was like another homework for me to make sure that person was doing that daily. But that was really good. I wish I had time to do that because I think that's really great for kids to see what's going to be on the menu the next day, especially if it's something they're not used to, like pizza or chicken patty or whatever.
Absolutely. Katie, I want to make sure that we have a chance to highlight some of the stuff taking place in your world. So please kind of walk us through a little bit of what we're seeing here.
Yeah. So for me, the audience that I'm shooting for is mainly my board and then parents. I don't have high hopes that my students are going to follow their school food service on Instagram. And I don't have the skill to venture into TikTok. So I'm aiming for adults. So I do try to kind of gear it towards adults. You'll see a picture of lo mein that we made one day. That one I highlighted because we made that from scratch. Anytime we're doing that, I try to get a photo of our scratch items to post. I posted our team going to the culinary training this summer. Again, if it's board members following, I think those are faces that they should care about and learn, and so they might engage. I do usually find that when it's people, it's not always, doesn't get quite the same engagement as food gets, which makes sense. They don't necessarily know those people, so they're not going to like that post, but I think it's still important to highlight them. We have a picture of lunch one day. So we had shepherd's pie. This one I added just because I wanted to highlight how many photos I take of food before I post them and how much I play with the food before I post it. I want to put my best foot forward if I'm putting a permanent photo on the internet. So I pick the nicest plated version and I put it in the most attractive setting and I take like 30 pictures before I land on one. And you just have to suck it up that that's kind of embarrassing. But I think it's really important. I think we have such a bad reputation in school food. I want to make sure that I'm putting the best possible version out there for people to see because they have low expectations to begin with. In the middle is a salad bar because I think a lot of parents don't necessarily know that we have salad bars in our cafeterias, and it's such a huge part of lunch. So they just see the entree and the hot veg that we menu daily, and they might think that that's the whole thing when there's actually 6 to 12 other produce options that the kids could get every day. And then the last one, I did like draft menus for the school year just to try to get ahead at the end of last school year. And I thought it was a good time to kind of share a little bit more about how complex menu creation can be. Again, shooting to contact my board when I'm doing this kind of thing. I think people can look at school food service and think that it's very simple. And you're just serving pizza and that's not that complicated, but to kind of explain to folks that we're balancing what's popular with scratch cooking, with local ingredients, with our staffing issues that we all have every day, and try to kind of explain to people how complicated it can be and how challenging it is.
Yeah, it's I love that type of post. And for anybody who's had the privilege of taking some of the culinary training courses with Chef Sam, I've heard her mention a couple of times how more meals are served in schools than all of Maine's restaurants combined in a given year, right? So pretend that that's not a complicated feat to pull off day in and day out. I think parting the curtain a little bit and showing some of that behind the scenes work that maybe people have really no idea what's taking place can be hugely impactful for, again, raising awareness and changing hearts and minds. Thank you guys all for kind of walking us through some of your posts there. For people who may be just getting started and are a little intimidated, I also wanted to make mention that we also, Full Plates has a social media toolkit that you can absolutely download and use as your own to help get you started. Robin's dropping the link in our chat there. But these are kind of agnostic of brand, and they're just some kind of foundational things that can help get you started talking about the benefits and the value of school meals in your systems. I am mindful of time. I see that we only have a few minutes. So I'm going to actually skip ahead a little bit. Let me exit here. But what we can do is, there was a portion of this that we were going to talk about, just basic how to go about capturing photo and video. We can make that publicly available and we'll post that to our website. So anyone who would like can go and check that out for themselves. And then you have it as a reference later down the line, should you want some guidance on how to do that. The last thing, just in the last 5 minutes we have here, I wanted to touch on is graphic design, which sounds scary. But here's the truth. I'm not a graphic designer. I was never a graphic designer. And I find myself creating graphics now all the time. And it's thanks to this really kind of neat little program out there called Canva. I'm curious, actually, if any of our panelists, just by show of hands, have any of you guys ever used Canva before? All three, perfect. That's wonderful. So Canva's great. And the other nice thing about Canva is, hey, free for K through 12. So it is a really simple kind of drag and drop tool that you can use to create some really compelling graphics. A few examples, right? You can create posts that spotlight a child nutrition professional in your kitchen, to create those school menus, to celebrate trays of the day. And it's super intuitive. Let's see here. For example, after you kind of get onto the platform and logged in, let's say I want to create a school lunch menu. Type that up into that search bar. And then down below, it shows me a bunch of different pre-made templates for school lunch menus. We've got one that is by month, which is probably, I think, the one that's going to be more useful for everybody here. But let's say you wanted to post a weekly menu on social media, you've got that there. But once I click onto that, I can customize the template. And it's really just a matter of, once it loads, there we go. Getting in there, and I can type in any old thing I want. I can change the color to match the school colors or logos. And if I wanted to, actually, let's do this. Let's say I wanted to do a tray of the day. You can upload your own photos here that you can then drop down in this section, or I don't know if you do this for tray of the day, but just to kind of show off what the platform is capable of. It has a bunch of stock photography that you can look up. So like kids eating lunch. I type that in. I've got graphics, I've got videos, I've got photos, and a lot of them. So I selected this guy here. I can make that as big or as small as I want. And even if I want to get a little fancy here, I can click this little background remover, the background that was there before, there now. Now it's gone. And I've got a pretty slick looking post that's ready to go that I can save to my computer, stick on my Instagram or Facebook account, and I'm good to go. So this is, again, I'm noticing the clock, so we're going through this really quickly. But this is a really cool, very user-friendly tool that, again, somebody who has never done any professional graphic design work in his past, I was able to pick up pretty quickly, and I love this program. So as with some of the other content we've discussed here before, if this is a program that anyone here on the call is interested in learning more about, but maybe a little intimidated to explore on their own, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'm happy to dive into it more on either a one-on-one or small group setting. But yeah, I see we got 2 minutes left, Robin, so I will stop sharing my screen and turn over to you.
Yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned this, Daniel, but how much does Canva cost?
Oh, $0 for K through 12.
$0. That's the right price. Yeah,
Yes.
I don't see any other questions, but if anybody, any of our participants, attendees have questions they want to raise their hand, I can unmute them, or they can drop something in the chat, or share tips and tricks for your own social media. Yeah. All right. And again, I did drop a couple links in the chat. So make sure you grab our Full Plates social media toolkit. And then that Let's Go resource is really helpful for getting started. But I think that's probably it, Daniel, if you want to close us out or
Yeah.
give any last words.
Just again, two things really. One, we're going to make a lot of this material that we discussed today available on Full Plate's website. So please keep an eye out for that, so that, you know, if you want to go back and reference this stuff, it'll be there. Also, again, don't hesitate just to reach out to me either through social media or just by email. I'm happy to have a deeper conversation about any of this stuff with folks. And lastly, I'd be remiss again if I didn't just thank our wonderful panelists for joining us today and being a part of this conversation. Again, your experience is way more valuable than mine in this realm. So I'm really appreciative that you guys were able to share your experience here. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.